Be still and affirm your oneness with all of creation, knowing that you are the God Goddess, the one that we have been waiting for. Accepting that mantle of responsibility, we invoke our guides, guards, ancestors, and the ancient ones come near to us. As we allow ourselves to be open and receptive to the information which we're about to receive, so that we may fulfill our life duty. And for this time that we spend together in oneness and in harmony, we say Ashe, 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 Ashe-o. Ashe. Good to see you guys here today, and welcome to the Institute of Sacred Evolution. We have Ella Cruchon, who's going to speak to us about the full moon and the energy in which it brings and how we can utilize that energy into our own personal lives. I present to you Ella Cruchon.
Peace, peace. How are we doing? You good? It's a nice little crowd that we have here today. We're going to talk about this total lunar eclipse that we had yesterday at 8 o'clock in the morning. A lot of significant things that are taking place right now. And it all represents titled it Me, Myself, and My Shadow. Now, with astrology, you know, we have 12 different zodiac signs. If you was to make a correlation between astrology and the Bible, the 12 zodiac signs would be the 12 disciples. The word disciple is actually a word that has its roots in discipline. So it's 12 different areas of our life that we need to discipline ourselves, right? But to get it a little bit more, I guess, condensed, instead of looking at it as being 12 different signs, it's 6 pairs of signs, right? And as you see here, these are what the pairs represent. Right now, the sun is in Aries, and we had a full moon in Libra. So this axis is about identity. This is the time of the year where we really begin to form our identity. In a more esoteric viewpoint, is where we look at the world and we see this perfect vision of the world, because Aries is the visionary. Aries is associated with, you can say, Moses. When Moses was like, you know, I see a promised land, and that's what Aries is accomplishing, moving in that direction. In each of the other signs, you see Taurus, Scorpio, that's about security. Where Taurus is more about the material, physical dynamic, and Scorpio is the emotional, soul aspect. Between Gemini and Sagittarius, that's the mind. So that's the balance between the lower mind and the higher mind. Cancer and Capricorn is about responsibility. You have, you know, your own personal responsibility, and then you have the collective. Cancer is more on the emotional side, like that, you know, nurturing, and Capricorn is more like, you know, ambitious, what you're doing for the collective. Leo and Aquarius is group dynamics, and Virgo and Pisces is between, you know, matter and spirit. The significance now with this particular full moon being in Libra, you know, Libra is a sign of balance, it's about we, where Aries is, you know, just I. The thing about Aries and Libra is that this is where we begin to establish our, like I say, identity. But we really don't know who we are until we come into contact with, you know, other individuals. When I looked at the chart for the exact time that the full moon was exact yesterday, the rising sign was in Taurus. And the rising sign is kind of like it points to the destiny, the destination where you're going. And since Taurus is like a builder, I looked at that as being like, you know, we're building, you know, this personality, right? But Taurus is also the hoarder. So Taurus is like, you know, you want to go forward, but you want to bring everything. You know what I'm saying? Now, the descending sign is going to be in the opposite, which is Scorpio. And Scorpio in occult symbolism is associated with death. And since Scorpio is in the 7th house, which is ruled by Libra, where it's about relationships, it seems that you know, when we start out, we're rising, you know, we're in Taurus, and we're like, okay, this is who I am, right? The Taurus can be very fixed and rigid. So we're holding on to parts of ourselves that may not necessarily need to go where we're going, but we won't know that until we interact with some other individual. And that's the depth of the personality when you get to Scorpio. It's like that parts of us are actually dying, we're shedding and being regenerated. The aspect that was made before the moon was exactly full, it made an aspect with Jupiter, which is now slowing down because it's turning direct on the 8th this week. It was conjunct the North Node, which is basically a sensitive point in the chart that is like a compass that points to where your past life memories and lessons that we've learned intersect with our current lessons and goals that we're learning. And then it also had a challenging aspect with Pluto, which is about transformation. With those aspects being made close to the full moon, it's like with Jupiter being retrograde, it's like we're opening up our hearts right now, right? But since the energy is retrograde, it's still like an internal process that's taking place where we're getting closer to what's really in our heart. Who are we? You know, we have all these questions and we have this feeling where it's like, I know that I have to do something, and we're all like maybe in a place where we have things that we want to do, but things are not really clear because the energy is not, Saturn just went retrograde too, so a lot of things are being turned internal. And this brings us back to whatever was going on between, I'll say, September of last year to now. And Saturn went retrograde last month, and that's bringing us back to December as well. So it's between September and December. It's like a lot of things that lessons that we've learned, the pains, hardships. It's like we're looking over that area again to see what it is and where it relates to us. For me personally, 6 months ago was around the time when we had the Emerald Ball. And I was going through a lot of mental stress. So 6 months now, where we are now, I was feeling the physical effects of that. It's like that seed was planted 6 months ago and now it comes up. So this full moon was in the 6th house, which is ruled by Virgo. And Virgo represents that part of us where we have our daily routine, our physical health. The opposite of that will be Pisces, which is our mental, more spiritual and soul and emotional health and things that we can do. And it's so interesting because Aries and Libra are basically trapped up in that house. So it made me think about that movie, Groundhog's Day. How many people seen that? Now you see how every day he's waking up and he's doing the same thing, right? That's that Virgo energy, that's constantly doing the work. And the thing is, everybody that he was encountering, he's talking, and especially I know most people who come up here to IC, we are, enlightened to a certain degree where we are the ones who are talking to our friends and family of saying stuff, but they're not hearing us. And we even have that amongst us too, right? So that's that shadow part, because really you're talking to yourself. Because anything that you can say to them is something that you can get a chance to look at. And that movie, you should definitely go and watch it, especially after this lecture, because it's going to give you a lot of insight in terms of what's at stake. Because every day he's waking up, saying stuff to people, and it's not that he was able to move forward and go to the next day until he had to change, because that's the work. And all the people that he was encountering were different parts of himself. And that's when you're dealing with Libra, right? But you have to be able to know that we project a lot of stuff that's ours and we project it on other people. That way we can get the contrast so we can work with the energy so we can continue to build Taurus rising, our personality and our identity, who we really are. But it's tough because we've been holding on to so much of who we thought we were for so long, and now we're at this point where we have this, lunar eclipse. And an eclipse is like where one thing is blocked out so something else can be clearly seen. And that's basically what the eclipse are about. And they're very powerful to where the effects can be felt like 60 days before it actually goes exact. And depending on where it falls in your chart will determine, for me personally, I had this eclipse happen all the past couple of moons, phases, like the new moon and full moon, they were happening in my 12th house. So it all had to do with health, mental health. And then the 12th house is like a place that deals with illusions too. So even this past week, I had a situation where some people were in my house and there was some negative energy and I felt like I was possessed. I even reached out to Rita. And when I look back at everything that played out over the past week, and I looked at it from a new light, because I know those events that took place were like, they were like absolutely real. But then having a chance to be still and continue to cleanse, I'm like, man, okay, so on one side it was real, on the other side it's illusions. So what was going on? And when I look at everything I was doing, it was like I was really having a crisis with myself, and I was shedding, because now I'm not going to be living in that place. My job, they were aware of what was going on, so I haven't been to work in a week. So everything is like basically changing. But it's funny how I did it through this, like it's like this erratic behavior. And as we speak right now, the sun is actually forming a conjunction with Uranus. And Uranus is just sudden change. All of a sudden it was good, the next moment, boom, what's going on? And a lot of that is happening. And that's actually all in the 12th house. Like a lot of the main planets, as we speak from the point of this full moon, everything was in the 12th house. So it's like, when I think about the things that I want to do, it's almost like I'm just like that movie Castaway. You know, you land on the, you go through all that crisis of the plane crashing, now you hit the island, and now you're there, and you know you're alive, but then it's kind of like you just sit on the beach for a second you just get in a moment to just say, okay, so what's going to come from this, you know? And it's like, it's not, this whole, all the heavens and the symbolism right now, it's kind of reflecting on who we're becoming, not who we were. And it's like a whole new adventure, because right now the moon is void. So I was asking other people, like even Chef, like feeling like it's just this stillness right now. Like, I don't know how you guys are, how it's affecting y'all personally, but that's basically what went down with me.
Yeah,
You know?
it's some inward of reflection though, but not, yeah.
It's like, okay. And based on the Mayan calendar, the galactic tone for today, it's vibration number 7. So this is a reflective day in general too. And then with all of the push and pull with the planets, it's kind of like we're in a place where the best thing to do is to just be still right now. Especially right now. We know what we want to do, but then even that's kind of like, why do I want to do that? It's like we're questioning, you know, everything. But we definitely know we got to do the work, and it's going to be boring, because the 6th house is that boring day-to-day doing the work. And it's just interesting how all this, for me, how this came about, especially when I called the reader and I told her that I was going to put my bootstraps on and get back into IC, because I took a break. And I was not sure if I was going to come back to continue school, but I'm like, okay, I'm ready now. As soon as that happens, boom. Okay, if you're ready, where we going, you can't bring all that. You got to pack light. You got to go with your cup. It has to be empty. You know, forget everything that you thought you knew. Because it doesn't apply where we're going. And that's what the symbolism tells us. So with that, I don't know if you have any questions. Anybody wants to share a personal testimony of what's going on right now? I can probably add some perspective to it.
Well, I mean, I think that it's kind of funny, because Friday was the women's group. There was a light amount of women here, but my topic really was finding patterns and breaking them. But then also the grief process, because the death or the realization that that pattern existed, and that what you manifested in your life could be missed opportunities because of the limitations that you put on yourself by not seeing those patterns or behaviors, or you know, because they can be completely subconscious. And that was kind of what I talked to. So it was kind of like when you said the Scorpio is the death. I was like, that's so funny because like when people think of grief, it's always associated with the death of something. And it's the transition.
Yeah.
And that was what, I don't know you said, but that was what was at the bottom, is the limitations and the grief, and then the transition to becoming truly you.
Yeah.
But you're gonna go through some level of a grieving process, and I went through the steps of the grieving process in that workshop. So yeah, so it was kind of, so when I was like, there's a roundabout right now.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so it is, what you said, for me, it's been a lot of reflecting, because old emotions have come up, because some situations are still lingering, and I know they're probably going to linger for at least another year or so. And I keep telling myself, don't get caught in the details, focus on the end result. So that's what I keep trying to play in my head, like stop getting caught in the weeds.
Right. Exactly.
Stay out of the weeds. We already know that the situation is going to be in my favor, but for me not to get stuck in the weeds, because when I get stuck in the weeds, that's when I get emotionally attached to the situation. Yeah.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because when you talking about the 12th and 6th house, that's what that's about. It's about becoming whole, because it's the balance between, your spiritual needs and then your physical needs. And I know for me personally, I've been trying to strike this balance, because on one side, it's just been all spiritual, right? And then when you think about Taurus rising, like last couple of people that I've been dealing with have been like Taurus. I had a Taurus who was a roommate, who was a hoarder. This girl I was dating, she was a Scorpio, and two of these energies were intercepted in my particular birth chart. The intercepts work where, based on, we have 12 different houses, right? The houses, you have signs, planets, and houses. The planets are the powers, the light. Like if I was to take like this light, you can see the direct light bulb, that would be the planet. The signs would be like if I was to take a lampshade, and you have a blue lampshade, a yellow, that kind of colors the light, right? The house is where the light is going. So if I can be able to take this light and put it on this wall, or put it in that area, that's the area where the light is basically shining, right? So it's like, for me, dealing with the whole, the spiritual stuff, right? And then the balance of the physical. When you think of Taurus, that's like the earth. That's an earth sign. So you're dealing with practical matters. When I was born, those energies of Taurus and Scorpio, they were like intercepted to where the energy didn't have like a doorway to escape. So it's been bottled up until I moved to DC. If you ever get an astrology reading, make sure that the astrologer does a relocation chart, because some places are better than others. Some people, they move to a town because of some obligation and they just feel stuck because the energy changes. Now the birth chart is the imprint that's there. Like if you were born like in a third world country and you came to America like this week, you're not gonna take out your customs and start, eating McDonald's. You're gonna still probably be holding your spear, like.
Right.
So that's kind of how it was for me, right? With that Taurus energy being practical. So when you have Taurus and Scorpio intercepted, those are the builders of the zodiac, right? The energy that's on the house cusp before that would be Aries and Libra, and those are cardinal signs. So these are the signs that start the season, right? So for me, yeah, I can start something, but then to complete it, it was always challenging. Once I started to, study astrology and learn more about myself and realize, okay, this thing is going to have to become unstuck in my consciousness, because it don't matter. Like, people say, the signs and all that stuff, we can rise above it. It takes a lot of work, but the whole thing is the art of interpretation. Because even when you rise above to the next level, you can look at the person's chart and see, okay, you're using the energy at the highest octave, where it's just really more like a blueprint. Like, you have an action and you say, okay, let me chart out the action and split up first. The planets kind of reflect that. So they don't rule us per se, but then they do kind of, it's like a sign. Like we're in DC, if you want to get to 3rd Street Northwest, you're going to have to say it. You just can't be all abstract, like, well, I'm just on Earth. Because then you got to communicate. Exactly. And that's the whole commitment when you're dealing with Aries and Libra, because Libra is like my eye. Because that's the contract. We have, we have contracts that we signed up for before we were even born. And this is just kind of like a map to remind us, okay, what that we said we were going to do, what our intentions were. And as the planets transit and trigger certain points, certain events take place, but the event is really something that's in us, because we can catch it if we're still enough to really feel. But it's so much things that's happening. It's just like the movie Focus. I don't know how many people have seen that. But that's another movie Focus with Will Smith. Yeah, that movie is deep. Deep. It's called Focus. And it's about, con artists. And how, you can be in the metro or whatever, someone taps you, next thing you know, your wallet is gone, right? So, and that's how it is. It's these little things that we miss and we don't pay attention, and we have to kind of wait till there's a full moon or some cycle based on what our chart is for the energy to be clear. That's where we're just kind of more so being still and cooperating with the all, opposed to saying I'm like bigger than the all and I'm God or whatever. It's good to have that, but we have to be balanced. That's why the Hermeticians, they say, as above, so below, and so below as above, because it's the balance. And that's basically where, I am. So as I started coming to where now I can feel my foot, it felt like when I was being possessed this past weekend, it felt like something was coming inside of me. And what I was doing was I was like, all right, I heard something moving in my room, and it was moving around, and I was like, get out. I was just saying, get out. And then it started getting more like aggressive as I was getting aggressive. So I was using the sage, none of that was working, because the energy was just moving quick. So then the only thing that worked was when I took my drum and I was drumming, and it's like my neighbors are like sleeping, so I'm waking people up and I'm just drumming. And then as I started to drum, I felt my rhythm. And as I'm drumming, then I started to kind of be like a little more calm. And then I walked outside. I was like, I'll just walk you outside. So I just walked outside with it and went to a tree, and I hugged the tree. But then when I woke up the next day, I still wasn't feeling like myself. Stuff was just kind of off. So I don't know if it left or I don't know anything. But by that time, people were thinking like, I'm just like on a whole nother one. And then when you came, I had started calming down because I felt like it was trying to come out of me. And I was just like, you can't come out that way. And I was just being still. But I was scared as hell. For real. Well, looking back after and talking with David to get some contrast on what was going on, I had a lot of stuff in the 12th house, which is the opposite of the 6th house. And that's like all these old habits, all these patterns, feeling like people were working against me. That was just that stuff that I swept underneath the rug. And when it's time to clean up 6th house, you're going to pull the other side, because it's like when you pick up one end of the stick, you're going to pick up the other end. There's no way to just like focus on one side, and that's the shadow. That's why I titled this "Me, Myself, and My Shadow," because for anybody who can say my sun sign is Aries, you're subconsciously operating from the Libra energy. Or if you're a Libra, you're subconsciously acting from the Aries. So you're dealing with the duality and the polarity, but it's hidden. It's the shadow part. That's why it's best, I guess, be still, see where your shadow is, and then you can know what time it is.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that, and it's so funny too, because it's like when you say Cancer and Capricorn, and like the person I refer to is my sister is a Capricorn. And she's like, I got all these Cancers around me. Like everybody is a Cancer around her. Her father's a Cancer. And she's like, I feel like I act like one. And she's like, because she was raised by one, But she's like, everybody around us, all these Cancers, Cancer. So to see that as, that we're opposites of each other, but that they do appear. And not only is for me, it's kind of funny with her anyway, is when I meet another one, they share the same birthday as her. And that's what's always ironic to me when I meet other like Capricorns, and I'm like, when's your in the 3rd of January? Freaky. or the 2nd. They're either the 3rd or the 2nd, and she's the 3rd. But it's been very interesting to have that type of situation. But looking at that, so we're responsibility.
It's about, yeah, because, you know, Cancer is the mom. You know, so when you're pregnant, you know, you're holding on to the baby in the womb, everything is it's not even not about you anymore.
Right.
It's like, what am I eating? Can I drink? If I say if I smoke, right? You gotta have those type of thoughts. And then that's more like private in the home, right? Sheltered. But Capricorn is public. So for you to say, all right, this is a movement that I'm starting, or this is what I'm doing in, you know, your career type of goals, that's the Capricorn energy. But it's still that responsibility. So like for the reader to make ISE, that's tapping into her Capricorn energy with this collective, because there's a collective responsibility of, you know, raising the consciousness for humanity. And then whatever you find is your career, that would be the balance between Cancer and Capricorn, because your career is how you nurture yourself. That's why I've always been funny when I hear the term, like, you know, a business, they might fire you and say it's just business, but it's personal, because now I don't have money, so how can I do that? Right? You deal with the polarity, it's not separated. And you can do that type of play in Gemini and Sagittarius, because that's like, you know, this represents, you know, the smaller mind, right? Like the immediate environment. So what we see here. But then if you start thinking in larger terms like DC, right now, from what we can see, is just this room. But DC does exist and it's larger than here. That's when you get into Sagittarius. It's like, it's foreign. So we can just philosophize, like maybe the red line is doing this, that, third. That's getting into a larger space. So you think of like colleges and universities. But this whole dynamic is about balancing the lower and the higher mind. And we have all 12 of those now, depending on your chart. If you have planets in these signs, then that also shows how the planet is learning to the lesson of the sign. And then the house represents where you're going to encounter that lesson. Like me, I have Venus and Mars and Virgo, and they're in the 6th house. So when I'm doing my daily routine, I'm running into a lot of activity. Before, I was running into a lot of aggressive types. And for me being a Libra, I'm like, no, I want to be peaceful and calm. But I was meeting myself when I go to work, and it was coming out aggressive because I didn't have any hold on it. So it was being used against me, my own energy, right? Also, Venus in Virgo, that's I encounter like a lot of love interests, you know, in the work environment or along my daily routine. And these are just some keywords, you know. Then I also have the Sun in Libra, and it's in the 6th house, and I also have Mercury in Libra, and it's in the 6th house. So I'm more of a Virgo than most Virgos, because I have a lot of Virgo energy. So like it's real mental, prioritizing, you know, organizing. But those are also like not just planets in terms of like where I encounter my energy, but then it's also like lessons that I'm learning, because they say you don't really become into your sun sign until about like, you know, mid-30s. And most people who ain't getting it, they still are not getting it. They're like, you know, 40 plus, and they're still on the lower octave of their sign. Yeah.
Now, you got your sun sign, and then there's another chart. This the 12 zodiac signs. This a little bit shifted, and I forget what it's called.
Sidereal?
Yeah, I think that's
So from the time that we started doing astrology back in antiquity, the tilt of the earth and where the actual constellations were in the sky, they were aligned.
Okay.
Every 70 years, it went back 1 degree. So right now we're like 26 degrees behind from where the actual constellations are and the tilt of the earth. However, the zodiac is not something that is like real in terms of like, there goes the constellation, so this is where it starts. It was always something that dealt with like, you know, abstract metaphysics of the mind. So when you hear that statement, when people say, well, you are like not the sign you're the sign before, that's not necessarily true, but it is an interesting perspective, because when you get into the sidereal, then it's a whole nother philosophy where they use like lunar mansions. So they don't even talk a lot about, they don't talk a lot about the sun per se, because that's like, you know, your personality. That's like, we'll say mundane astrology. But when you get into like the soul and you want to get into that, that's when you're looking at the moon. And you're looking at the nodes of the moon as well, because the moon represents our past. It represents the things that we need to overcome in this lifetime for our soul to grow. So whatever your moon sign is, the moon sign is going to tell you. Like for me, my moon sign is Aquarius. So Aquarius is an air sign, masculine. And Aquarius is also a sign that deals with like the future. It doesn't deal with like here and now. It's already thinking about tomorrow. The opposite of Aquarius is Leo. So Leo represents the heart. So what would be the opposite of the heart? Right? So the lesson for anybody who has an Aquarius moon is to be able to readily more express what's in their heart. You know, to express their emotions. You know, most people who have moon in Aquarius or in anybody's chart, if you have any aspect that's with Aquarius or Uranus, which is the ruler, you can point to medical problems of like arthritis. Because when you have the air just blowing and then the wind, it's like by the time we're in Aquarius, that's like the middle of winter. How winter water, that water becomes frozen, and we know that water is symbolic of emotions. That's what happens in somebody's body, especially when they have like a dominant placement in Aquarius, like a moon, like for me, for example. So for me, I'm thinking, oh, I gotta be nice. I gotta be nice, right? And then like, that's just, you know, the Libra side. But what about Aries is just like, hey, look, warrior, what about that, right? And as the nurturing between, you know, you all, and especially the example of like Dorita, is like, it's not about being nice. You gotta be whole. And whole, sometimes stuff has to get severed.
That's right.
Because it's not until things that are separated that they can be properly put back together.
That's right.
So as I started doing that, I wasn't holding the emotion, because the whole niceness is just one part of the pie. I got to deal with the other side too, because it's all nice, right?
It's all good.
It's all good.
And it's all good. But that has to be in your consciousness. Because even if you say, let me be a warrior, but you're out of alignment doing it, you're going to create this ease.
That's right.
Because I did this, I'm, oh, do you think that I was too hard on him? You got to get past that. You got to be able to balance this right here and know who you are. That's that first step, which is where we are now, Sun Aries. And me, like I'm moving, the one motivator that made me decide to come back to the school is because of the whole Cancer Capricorn dynamic, right? And it's like, in order to go into the direction where I want to go, because I'm moving into the direction of becoming a medical astrologer. I have to have some type of credentials, because now I've been having my own health issues to work with, and then like with my mother, and a few suggestions that I make to friends just based on the nutritional dynamic. I probably won't be going as far as like, you know, like replacing a physician, but I'll be like a good supplement where, you know, I can say this is the food you eat, because based underneath the stars, like for me being a Libra, a good cell salt for me is like strawberries, like I eat strawberries. And based on when you look in your chart, you can see what you need, you know, to eat, because certain things are in season at certain times. But, you know, in this, I guess we would say Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo and Pisces dynamic that we maintain in America, it's like a whole bunch of illusion and abstract ideas. Oh yeah, I want strawberries now. That's not the time to have strawberries. So you're not in sync. You're not in the rhythm. And that's why I said when I was going through that, like trying to exorcism for myself, it was the drum. And when I found my rhythm, I was calm, even though that thing was still there. So, and that's the thing, we got to really, you know, this is just one tool that we can use to become whole with ourselves. And this is what the stars are pointing out now, that what's our next steps, which is to really be still, at least for now, because we have Jupiter going direct this week. Saturn went retrograde a few weeks ago. And Saturn right now is actually, when I did the chart for yesterday, Saturn was in the 7th house, which is about relationships. So a lot of tests, lessons, they come through relationships. And now, for me personally, to not be afraid to at least say, hey, I need help, right? I can't do this by myself, and move past the fear of, the other. It's now I can move in a direction of being whole. And Saturn is that part that's like, you're going to do this lesson. It's going to be a hard lesson, but you're going to have to do it. There's no way around it. And that's what a lot of limitations are. We feel that. So Saturn is retrograding back to the period of, let's say, December. So from December to March 4th is kind of what we're doing over. And we're going to be doing that until November. Yeah. So whatever lessons and tests that we didn't completely fulfill during December to March, we're getting a second chance to look at that again. But since the energy is retrograde, the tests are not necessarily going to be coming from outside of us. It's just more like us knowing that, I could have done this better, or I could have did that. And now Jupiter is going direct. We're still going to be in that shadow period to about December as well. So it's interesting to see where Jupiter and Saturn are, because Jupiter represents how we grow, how we expand, right? And since it's in Leo, that's the heart. So right now we're going through these hard lessons and tests to really get to our heart. Because for me, I was reading like 1,000 books, and it was all stimulating the mind, but I didn't find myself in those books until more recently. Is when I started to shed out the old parts that didn't really matter, because a lot of stuff is just good for conversation, but what is the relevance to me? And as I've been going through this death and birth, it's like, all right, I see now. And it's real simple. And, we just got to be still. The answers are always here right now.
Could you speak a little bit about the Virgo Pisces part and then Leo Aquarius?
Okay, so I'll start with the Leo and Aquarius. So Leo is the performer. When you say that this is my show, this is what I'm going to be doing, or whatever, that's you going into your passion, you're going into your heart. Like, y'all got a show coming up, or I'm doing a lecture Sunday. That's like, right now the spotlight is on me. So this would be like, I'm the sun right now in this room. Okay, and I'm shining my light on all of y'all. The thing with Leo is that Leo shouldn't necessarily be concerned with the light that is shining on y'all as it being the light itself. It needs to know that the light is shining through. So the Leo represents the ego to a certain degree, right? Aquarius now is the humanitarian, right? Aquarius is like, this is what I want to do. Yeah, so when you think of like the Leo and Aquarius dynamic, it's like, this is what I'm going to do on Sunday. I'm going to go up there and do the lecture. It's going to be nice. Everybody's going to write. You're coming from that standpoint. But if you get stuck in that, you might miss your stop. Like, I'm on the train. I got to turn back around. I'm late or whatever, because I'm just so focused on the future. That's like, reform. When you think of like Tupac, you think of Bob Marley, that energy, that's Aquarius. Hip hop, like we rebelling, we're not doing it the same way anymore. So that's why you can see when you think of Leo, is like Leo is also like very innovative, because like, we think of Michael Jackson, right? And that Leo energy, it's like, no one did it like him. Like, it's just, how do you think about that? Because he's connected to the Aquarius energy, which is just straight innovation. But it's a group dynamic. So the axis between Leo and Aquarius is about, creative genius and personal distinction, but within a group. And since, that movie came out recently, Jupiter, Jupiter basically ascending in Leo. And that movie had all of the symbolism based on where we are now, because the star of the movie, not to spoil too much of it, she's a Leo. And Jupiter was actually ascending in her particular chart in the movie at 23 degrees in Leo. And Jupiter went retrograde in December at 23 degrees. And the week that the movie came out, it was when there was a full moon in Leo. Wow. The movies are basically like the new scriptures. So if you think about, once again, Leo, which is the sun, which is the light that gives life. Let's say, like, we'll say Leo would be like the Bible, for example, right? The scriptures. And I'm just doing this in an abstract, so I hope y'all can follow me. You can stop me if you get lost. So we say the Bible and all the wisdom that's inside of there and the hidden symbolism, we'll say that that's the Leo energy, right? Aquarius now will be like, you know, the future, right? So really now the scriptures, as we can see now, will be like the movies, because Aquarius moves over technology. We have iPhones, all of that. Like these are basically ways to communicate, which have always, there's always been a form of communication, whether through animals, you know, pigeon carriers, or then we came with the telephone, now we got the cell phones, and then moving out to these things that you put in your ear, right? All of that progression, that's because of the Aquarius energy. But the reason I brought up the Bible and, you know, the Aquarius and Leo dynamic is because we always have light that's going to shine. And it's going to shine even when it's nighttime, right? It's just on a different side. But the Aquarius energy is the reforming of the light going through this filter and getting to a higher place. So when you think of Aquarius, that's like Christ consciousness to a certain degree. Where Leo is the lower energy of the light doing the work, and Aquarius is that Christ consciousness. But we see it all throughout the movies. So that's why the Bible before, you know, we used to read it. But if you don't read the Bible, just watch the movies. But look at it from a spiritual perspective and you'll see all the scriptures. And it's like right on time, constantly. The movie, what came out? Jupiter Ascending, then I saw Focus. Focus, that's the Leo energy. Because when you think of the symbol of the sun, it's a circle and a dot. It's like a sniper rifle. That's where your focus is. So if you say, hey, my son, I'm a Virgo, that's where your focus is. That's how you shine your light, but you're learning that lesson now to a certain degree. But you're also, you kind of like had your degree. So whatever sign you are, that's the degree that you earned. But now you have the degree, but you don't have the job. So now you have to apply the sun sign energy. But the way that you do that is a daily routine, which brings us now to Virgo Pisces. Virgo is the physical doing the work. Like, you know, we can fast and not eat, but after a while, you know, we begin to deteriorate. Then we also have soul and emotional needs. So you can't be, you know, divided, right? Because you can try to act like you Aquarius, like I don't need, you know, because when we think of these, like we read a lot of the spiritual books, they say how spirit doesn't know what's going on. It needs the physicality so it can sense itself. That's when we get into Virgo and Pisces. If this whole aspect is the last, right? And this is the 12th sign, it's the 6th sign, but they're pairs, so they're not separated. This is about becoming whole, and that's the work. And that's the work where we need a break every so often because it's so much work.
Yes.
It is so much work. But you have a question?
Yeah, but it's back to earlier, the small eye note.
Okay, cool.
Right. So the question they had was, they say you have an Aquarian moon. Do you fully express the feelings of your heart in your interpersonal relationships and interactions?
Yes, I've been doing it, but it's been on one side. So when I get into like doing like my art, when you see me basically being creative or doing my thing, that's me doing like the Aquarius and Libra, the Leo Aquarius energy. From the Aquarius moon side, that's like my unconscious behaviors. So unconsciously, I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about reform, rebelling, right? But if you look at these two as being polar opposites, and we talk about polarity, this has a pole to it on this side, so then that'll break down, and this has a pole. So then but to keep it simple, we'll say lower and higher octave, right? So there's the lower octave where Aquarius is like rebellious. So if you say, like when hip hop was coming out, was starting, it was like, I'm not gonna draw like on a piece of paper, I'm gonna draw on a wall, type of dynamic, right? But you're also being creative and you can't separate those two because that's dealing with Leo, right? So you're being creative, but it may be low based on society standards, but it's still, at the end of the day, it pushes consciousness forward. So then things evolve. Since Aquarius is an air sign, it's intellect. This is a fire sign, so you're dealing with passion and fire. with that being my moon sign, that shows me the lessons that I have to learn when it comes to expressing Leo energy because it's my moon. And remember, the moon reflects the light. So whatever your moon sign is, that shows you areas that you need to like overcome. So like if you had your moon in Capricorn, you somebody who, and this is just general, I'm not saying that, because everybody has a different octave on where they may be, but just a lower stage, someone who has their moon in Capricorn is all material. They're very ambitious, they're like, you know, real bossy, they have this authority type of vibe, they may even become serious. You might see some people with moon in Capricorn and they're like, maybe 22, but for some reason they just have this old soul because Capricorn is that elder, you know, but they're learning how to be more open and receptive to other people and be like, you know, be more nurturing and not just be like so short. And that's the Cancer, right? And they're moving in that direction to do the Cancer because they're operating from this on a subconscious standpoint, but it has to be made conscious. That's where Aquarius is, I know. And once you get to where the ancient ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. And you know, Saturn is like the billy goat, right? You climbing up this mountain. Until you get to the top of the mountain, you can't say I know. So once you reach that, that's why Aquarius is associated with Christ consciousness, right? It's like, okay, I know. But because there's always going to be birth and like, you know, Aquarius has to move from I know and go into the final frontier. That's when you get into Pisces, because when the signs progress on this side, right, you have Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. And then when you get into Pisces, you're looking at Neptune, so it's like unknown. I don't know what's there. It's almost like fear. It's a water sign. It's like the example I used before, where when you're dealing with Gemini, moving from Cancer, is the same like Aquarius moving to Pisces, because these two are water signs, right? And these two are air signs. This is the lower mind, Gemini, which is the child, right? That duality, because this mind right here needs to be disciplined. And the way it gets disciplined is by going forward into Cancer, and Cancer is water. So in, you know, the Christian religion, ritual, you have baptism. You have to go into the water. But the mind is like, I got this. So let's say you're standing on the edge of a pool and there's some image in the water and you're like looking in the water like, what is that? And you're trying to make something clear. You're not going to do it that way. But most people, they don't want to go into the water. And that's because of the backward gravitational pull from Taurus, which is a fixed sign, right? So all the signs there, you have the polarity, which is the shadow, right? So you got me, myself, and my shadow. But then you also have the past that pulls you back. So Aries is like, oh, I got this idea, right? I'm gonna start this place. It's called IC. It's gonna be this, that, and third. And you just visualizing it. When you get to Taurus now you're doing the work, right? Like laying down the foundation. You planted the seed already. By the time you get to Gemini, it's like you wrote up the plans, you communicated with people, and then you get to a point where it's like there has to be a decision that has to be made now. And that's when you get to Cancer. That's like almost like you sacrificing. But most people don't go to Cancer, they don't want to be baptized, right? Like I said, because of that backward pull of Taurus, which is a fixed sign. So you stand there, but it's not until you go into the water and get into it, like intuition, you got to get into it. Once you get into it, you get baptized, then you can go to Leo, and then you get to the heart of the matter. You have to go through that water, and going in the water, you want to use your mind. I can't see it. That's why it's better to just go and jump. Just close your eyes and just jump, because you're trying to see anyway. You got to get into it.
That was a divergent when you said, "Don't think, jump."
Yeah, because the water is that spirit. The water and the air. That's like that has a same polarity too. So like when you see water like physically, that's just the outward manifestation of the air. And that air is not like Libra air. We're talking about Pisces. That type of air is just being connected to everything. But when you're dealing with Virgo and Pisces, you know, Virgo is like, oh, do you see this little letter right here? You're looking at this right here and you miss the whole thing. And then Pisces, you're all the way over here, and people are like, hey, wake up. And that's what you're trying to balance when you have any dominant energies between those two. because it's really about seeing the big picture and the little picture and bringing it all together.
So what if your moon is in Pisces?
If your moon is in Pisces, you are, I want to say, you have psychic abilities. You are very sensitive, so you pick up on a lot of different energies, which may make you be like, you could be like a monk. You know, you go out, but you really kind of like just want to stay in a lot because you're absorbing so much. But the lesson there is to not to leave things to like the all or God or whatever you want to call it, because being connected to that, you know, Pisces moon, you just waiting around because you know it's going to work out. But at the same time, everybody else is just going past you. You got to be able to balance that energy by doing the work. Get up and say, okay, I'm working with the all, so I'm going to get up and, you know, work. Opposed to sitting back. It's about compassion. Virgo is like a very good manager. Virgo could be very critical, but Virgo is basically trying to serve. The lesson for, you know, Virgo would be like to be less critical and to take care of themselves sometimes. They're, you know, always wanting to give out, but what about yourself?
So if your moon is in Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
your shadow of that is the Virgo.
Yeah.
So then that means that you need to challenge yourself in the areas of the Virgo. Is
Yeah.
that what you okay?
Mm-hmm. You gotta be able to
Get that
to be able to balance it. And it's not, at first it's gonna start off by just doing it. You have to do it. And you have to do it in a way where you're gonna have conversations with people. They're gonna say stuff that's gonna sound good and it's gonna work for a certain point until you get to a situation like this lunar eclipse we had yesterday, where now you have all this stuff with you, all this information, but now what's relevant? And if you're gonna get on this plane, which is that higher consciousness, you can't bring all of that, and we're gonna charge you for the second bag. Now I think they charge you for the first bag now too. That's how serious it is now. You gotta come. You gotta be naked. You gotta strip. And it's like, well, I had this idea, like this lunar eclipse that we just had yesterday, it's like we're back where we started. But we're not here to affirm what we always knew. It's like, okay, I'm back where I started, but I'm at the beginning of it to where I can say, this is where I'm going forward. And you know you're taking a journey. It's like Star Trek. After they go somewhere and they feel like they've had confidence enough to leave that space, they say, where are we going now, Captain? It's like, we're going to the final frontier. So that's like what I say. This is a mutable sign. So Gemini is a little more flexible about, okay, fine, I'll jump in the water. But since Aquarius is a fixed sign, it's hard to leave what we think we know, because the model for Aquarius is I know. But what is knowledge? What is truth? Right? Those are some serious questions, because there's knowledge of the fact that DC back in the day, you know, DC used to like not have like a Verizon center, right? And that was knowledge at a certain point, but now that has changed. So are you going to be fixed, or are you going to jump into this, that Pisces, and be baptized by that, by that water?
Now I got another quick question. So now, and I could be wrong, the Pisces is the end of the life, right?
Yeah.
So like it's like age periods or seasons that correlate with the different signs.
Yeah, Pisces would be like it's going back into the potential energy, because out of Pisces is where Aries comes. So when you think of spring, like when the sun is passing through here, this is like, once it gets to Sagittarius, that's when the light of the sun is snuffed out. So when you're doing this point here, you're dealing with the Saturn energy, and it's like Christ, you say Christ has died. Then you get to Pisces, right, which is associated with Jesus, if you use that word, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the fish, right? Aries is the ram. Right? Because when the Bible is written to where you have we have a cycle that for us, where we are on Earth, the signs move this way, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, right?
Oh yeah.
But then there's a grander cycle where our solar system is moving backwards to the sign. So when we see Taurus, that was the bull. And then when Moses was coming, which was the ram, he was like, why y'all still doing Taurian things? Y'all worshiping the bull. Then after that, he moved and brought us to Pisces, right? And that was Jesus, which is now we're getting out of that age and now we're moving to Aquarius. So doing Pisces, since Pisces is very compassionate, that's the martyr. Like, y'all come and I'm going to stand up for you guys. Don't worry about it. I got it. Now we're moving into Aquarius, which is independent. So now everybody now has to do the work. It's not like no savior is coming.
So that's the group dynamics. We all got to be
I wanted to comment on you saying that we have the Capricorn. I mean, my sign is Cancer, but and the Capricorn is the responsibility part. It's really interesting. My sister is actually a Libra, and my sister, although I'm older, my sister was always the bossy one. You know, even her husband would tell you.
What's her sign?
She's a Libra. She's born in October 22nd. And now she's in a position where she can't be like that. And it's interesting because
What's her birthday?
October 22nd.
So there you go.
Right.
So she was born on the 22nd. So you have 2 and 2 is the 4.
Right.
Right. And the 4 is ruled by Uranus, which is Aquarius, and the ancient ruler is Saturn. So there you go.
Well, she's in a hospital. But anyway, so it's interesting because she always has been that bossy, you know, and we love her for it. You know, that's who she is. When my brother-in-law married him, I said, God bless you, and kept moving, you know, because he knew I. But now it's interesting because the roles, I know if I was in the situation that she's in now, she would take over, no question. And so now I see that I'm in a position where I'm now like the mother. So, you know, like that, I'm responsible because it's really taking a toll on her husband and it's taking a toll on her daughter, my niece. And so I texted him yesterday, and you know, he's a guy, he's not going to say, I need help, you know, so anyway. So it's interesting that you say that, like, we're the mother. I've never been a natural mother, but I remember Dorita would always come and she said, you're the universal mother. And I do see that in my coming in my life, and especially now with her. And actually not to leave early because I'm going to see her. But it's just really to the point, like, wow, you know, because I was truly mothering her yesterday. And she, you know, she can't respond, but she can't respond verbally, but you could tell that she probably wants to say, what the hell am I saying? You know, like she wants to, but like I really am trying to connect to see what she's saying internally.
But see, now I'm gonna point that out to you. So you said you're Cancer?
I am Cancer.
So Cancer is the universal mother, right? We all come from that womb, right, of Cancer. So now you have 2 types of moms, right? And the mom that we're all familiar with is the mom that is licking and, okay, mom, all right, right? The mom that's like the soccer mom, right?
Exactly.
Right. We want that the mom could think about this. When a woman has a baby in her for 9 months, right? To even let go of the baby is a painful experience. So that psychologically continues to play out even as like a mother, where it may not even be like, you know, it could be a friend. You know, you might be nurturing your friend or your coworkers where you have to be able to stand back, right? But Cancer is like the past. So Cancer doesn't forget anything. Like if anybody who has Mercury, the planet Mercury and Cancer, they're gonna remember every word. You're not gonna be able to get anything past them because water holds memory. That's why if you go to sleep or you in a meditative place, you put a bowl of water by the side of your bed and you program it with the intention that I want it to help me to continue to get this clarity, so you can kind of remember your dreams. You can put crystals in there if you want as well. But that water, it holds. Even like still water in a bowl, it's going to hold that position until some other force moves it. So with you can look at yourself to see where you see yourself doing that. Because from the shadow side, right, me, myself, and my shadow, I see Capricorn. Because you have this real authoritative type of stature to you, right? That's the Capricorn energy. That's subconscious to you. So you're going to take the authority, Capricorn, to nurture people. But you might be meddling sometimes because sometimes we just want our mom to just let us do it. And that's what you're balancing.
Exactly right. You're right. Exactly. It's just so interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to her being a, take charge person. Now, like, she's laying there, and like I said, even though she can't talk to us, but I know she's in there like, you know what, I'll be glad when I get the hell up out of you, because you can see it, It's like sorry, dear, you can't. Like that.
Yeah.
So she just kind of, pretty much, yeah.
So now, like real esoteric astrology, you have, you ever heard of the 7 rays? So each of these signs, they channel different ray energies. Capricorn and Cancer are on the ray of, on the first is Capricorn, Cancer is on the 3rd, and they're both on the 7th. So the first ray is about will and power, right? Using your willpower to go ahead and move mountains, right? The 3rd ray is the ray of active intelligence. So that's like busy. So you have Cancer, Capricorn, that they're busy, and then the 7th ray is ceremonial order and magic. So this dynamic is like when Dorita makes the food that she makes for us, and anybody who cooks, right? If you be still in the moment and you cook the food and you like actually feel the love, and it's like you're playing with the food, you're using that 7 ray energy to transmute your energy of love and put it into the food. That way you can taste it and be like, man, this tastes good. But other times your mind might not be present. You may be somewhere else, Aquarius, Gemini, right? So when you're making the food and you taste it, the energy is not the same. You did the same ingredients, but you didn't take the time to put that 7 ray energy in it. And each of us, we're operating on a combination of the rays, and I'm incorporating that into my readings as well. For me, it's just been a lot because like I was at the Pisces state where from the time that I started studying like soul psychology, it was just like I had everything. And then the events that took place over the past 3 months coming to a head this past weekend, now I was like, okay, boom, we in Aries now. And it's like, okay, focus. And I'm able to still hold on to this distant, past, but it's like everything has this orders for it now for me, because it was like a psychic overload for me that needed to escape. Yeah.
So how do you find your ray? Or is that just your birthday one?
No, each sign channels a ray, and then each sign has a esoteric ruler, which we know Mars is the ruler of Aries, but the esoteric ruler is Mercury. So since Aries is on the first ray of will and power, the lessons are about learning how to use your will for the collective, not just for your own ends. And when you look to where Mercury is, since Mercury is the esoteric ruler, whatever house that falls in, that will tell you where you're going to be learning and applying those lessons. So if you had it Aries rising as your ascendant, you have to know, in order to know this information, you have to know what your exact time of date of birth was. Or you won't be able to, we can do it in a different chart, which I haven't done, and I'm pretty sure we can do it in spirit, we'll still speak through that channel. But from just I guess the normal way that we've been doing astrology is that you need to know the exact time of day that you were born, and then you get the rising sign. So my rising sign is actually Aries. So when I look at Mars, it's like for me, when I sit down and do a reading, I have to know who I'm kind of dealing with. Because I'm like, I have like some planets in Sagittarius, so I want to go straight to the high truth. And that also is unbalanced too, because we also have here and now. So I'm always wanting to share philosophy, but the time for me to do that is when I've done the work to be up here talking. But in the street, I can't do that. I gotta be Gemini. I have to be versatile. I don't know what we're gonna talk about. We might talk about, whatever, right? Of course, yeah. And I have to be comfortable doing that. I can't be uncomfortable. I'm not gonna be old. It's like we have to enjoy life to its fullest and be able to see spirit at the same time. Not like, okay, I'm doing my spirit stuff on Sundays or when I have my conversation with certain people and then I go to work and then it's a whole different thing. It's like, how do we be able to do everything, how we doing it, but still see spirit, and we can at the same time. He speaks.
So are you basically saying that in order to be 100% full spirit or full person, or I don't know, for lack of a better word right now, because great person, so we have to embrace every single sign and understand that we are everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we need to stop identifying with just one sign and pretty much identify with all of them.
Yeah. That's why most people, based on where the planets fall in, like your particular chart, you'll be like, wow, I keep meeting these people. Like the guy who I told you was my roommate, who was a Taurus, he was a hoarder. Me and him had some legislative conflict because by the time you get to Taurus, which is the second sign, it channels the fourth ray of harmony through conflict. So we're going to all get to that point of harmony, but it's going to be conflict. And the conflict might be, you know, who knows what you're destined to do. You might have to do what Tupac did, to where we can't look at what he did and say, well, I wouldn't have done it like that. Like, everything is necessary to get to that point, because spirit is evolving and it's going to be casualties of war. So, and we got to be comfortable. We got to be comfortable in that state, you know. But at the same time, we're all of these. So when we see, like the guy I was telling, he's a Taurus. It wasn't until I started looking at that energy that I told you was intercepted on my chart and really understanding what it was. Once that clicked, next thing you know, he moved. Like he moved first. And it's like the people will come and they have, it's like, you know, what's your birthday? And then, oh, I know what? Think of any person that you don't like and what their sign is. Because that's your shadow. That's the stuff you try to sweep underneath the rug. And every time you come home, you smell something, but you're so scattered doing some other stuff that you don't necessarily have to be doing right now, that you're tired because you know you have waning and waxing, right? That's what the whole cycle is about. So, and we have the free will to do what we want, but it's going to get to a point when once that light shines in that Pisces, that closet, it's going to be stink, but it's going to be nowhere around it. You don't have to clean it up.
So you'll be trapped in it until you figure it out.
You smell it before you open the door. Damn, I gotta go in the house and I gotta pee at the same time. So it's like, dang, you might as well just do it.
I have one more question. Can you speak on what moon is Sagittarius in right now?
What moon?
Or is, like, explain that as far, because I know I'm a Cancer, and you were speaking earlier about
You're full of them.
Well, this is good.
This is great.
This is the point of grounding, because actually, when I did the chart yesterday, the fourth house actually had Cancer, so that is the foundation. that is like right on line. Yeah, so all the Cancers are here to show us how to remain emotional stability in a time of crisis.
I'm still learning myself.
Oh yeah,
It's a good thing.
That's where we are right now.
Learning teach.
But you was asking about Sagittarius.
Yeah, actually, because earlier you said, I mean, I know I'm Cancer, so I know I'm ruled by the moon. Was with my belief.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, but earlier you were referring to, you said that the Aries was in Aquarius moon or something like that?
Oh, I was speaking about my personal.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was born, the moon was in Aquarius.
Oh, so how do you, basically, I want to know a little bit more about Sagittarius, the sign Sagittarius. Like, if you were born in Sagittarius, what moon were you born under and all that stuff?
Well, you would still have to get like an ephemeris so we can see where the moon, because the moon is in a sign for 2.5 days. So, people who are Cancers, the reason why most people say, oh, they're so emotional, because since the ruling planet of Cancer is the moon, and the moon is going through all of these signs in 29 days, your energy is changing more so than anybody else on every 2 days. But that our focus usually changes. Because you're taking in all of this and all the aspects that are being made. But we can see it because right now, energy is moving through this room, right? But we don't know what's going on, what people's thoughts are. That's all in the Pisces energy. So if you got some planets or activity happening in Pisces, you'll be able to pick up on that. You'll be able to walk in this room and be like, something doesn't make me feel comfortable, but you more so revert to fear. Once you really start to get strong, you can walk into the room. Because even when I told you, what happened was that I was scared because I was like, I didn't feel like I had control of my body, but I was witnessing everything. But when it was just me and I had to like deal with it, and I started playing the drum, I was just calm, but I felt the energy just moving around in the room. And it was like a wind. I was like, damn. That thing was like really, but yeah,
Was there anything you could speak on?
Yeah,
Certain sign,
what-
you explain that sign.
Well, you have a lot of issues.
My issues with Gemini Capricorn. Which is kind of funny how it,
so that's
which is, I know that Capricorn is my dark side.
yeah, so everything that you just said, right? Capricorn, right? Dealing with responsibility.
I don't even want to speak.
Let's just go,
I don't even want to speak.
we're just gonna go into it. The responsibility, right? The responsibility, right? Of being responsible with your thoughts, right? And what your truth is.
Right.
And these energies are coming to you so you can look at it. But it is a hard lesson, Capricorn, to climb that mountain. And this is an earth sign, so the lesson is going to be practical. It's not going to be like, someone called your name. It's going to be collision.
So what is the Cancer Sagittarius relation? Or is there any?
So the relationship between these two signs is it's a 150-degree angle, which is called an inconjunct. Basically, it's about making an adjustment. You got a fire sign and water sign.
Wow.
Now, it can be good or it can be bad because it's all about consciousness, right? And where you are on that scale. So when you have Cancer, which is like, this is Cancer, like you just want to be relaxed, like be cool, right? Nurturing, right? And then you're dealing with Sagittarius, that's fire, so that's fire. It's just all over the place. And the Cancer just wants to be still. So that kind of could upset the stomach and all of that, you see, from just an energy dynamic in the physical plane. But that's what it's like. So it's like you're dealing with that, and depending on I don't know if you have what your chart looks like. I can look at it at some point to see what you have, what planets are there, and what lessons are associated with that. But just for now, I can just see the taking responsibility of your thoughts and your truth. That's the symbolism that comes to me between those three signs. Where Gemini again is the child. Right, walking around, touching everything in the store, right? And then that needs to be disciplined. That's why it moves forward to the Cancer. Sagittarius is not like that broad, right? Like what the truth is, but the truth is not. That's a relative thing because your truth is different than my truth. And Sagittarius is like a philosopher, right? Like Sagittarius would be like, these are signs of communication. So right now I'm communicating, that's Gemini energy, right? And I'm sharing philosophy, that's Sagittarius. Now the challenge for Sagittarius is that it's kind of like the fixed sign of Scorpio, which is connected to Taurus. So Scorpio is like, death, but Scorpio since it's connected to Taurus, it doesn't want to let go. So you have someone who's a Sagittarius who's like, this is my truth and I don't care. That's just absolute truth. So you're dealing with that. So this is how all of it ties in. You see, they're subconsciously holding on to that with their truth. And they want to expand, but they're not expanding by relating to people, which is the Gemini energy. So it's like this.
So they're using the Gemini energy pretty much to express what
Yeah, they're communicating, yeah.
like a Gemini.
Yeah, but they're not being versatile because Gemini channels the second ray of love and wisdom. So it's about piercing the veil of duality to know that it's just all one.
Right.
But you have to go on the other side to know that it's one. And Sagittarius has, just generally speaking, right, the challenge for Sagittarius would be to look at that versatility. Because if this is duality, then this is oneness. All religions come out of that. Religion is that intuitive realization of the all and the oneness. Theology is basically like, ascribing certain personality qualities to that oneness. So when you might say God, I might say Krishna, but we still using this energy. But if I don't use my mind, the lower part to let me see what Krishna is talking about and vice versa, then I'll find that one truth. But it's the words we hold on to that, which we can let go of that. Scorpio.
Let go of Scorpio.
Well, the Scorpio.
See, that's where I find my issues is with the Scorpios.
I'm glad that y'all are following me still. This is showing me how far along I've came, because like I was saying, yesterday we had the full moon lunar eclipse and the rising sign was Taurus. So Taurus, I look at that as being like we're building something, right? And Venus was rising too. So it was like, you know, just relationships and how we relate to things. Because when you're dealing with Venus rules Taurus and Libra, when Venus is in Taurus, that's like the material. What do I have? Okay, this is mine, right? This is all what I have. That's what the model for Taurus is. But then when you get to Venus and Libra, it's still that love and appreciation, but it's more about like how you relate to it. Like I don't like blue or I like yellow. It's like relating. And then it's also relationships as well. But the descending sign, which is in the 7th house, which is ruled by Libra naturally, it was in Scorpio. So I thought of that and looking at all the aspects, I'm like, okay, so the rising and the destination is that we're building our new identity right now. This is what the heavens are reflecting. But once we go out into the world and relate to other people, what we thought we was building is gonna have to die. Because you can be in your house like, oh man, this is so great, man, I have this great inspiration. And as soon as you go outside and see someone else, they probably cut you off or they don't hold the door for you. And then it's like, whatever you thought you was doing, that has to die to that moment. And it's like the Buddha said, we constantly have to continue to die each moment. Like right? Like we have this good conversation now, and as soon as we go outside from here, it's like we want to hold on to but so much of this, but life is gonna reform and we're gonna have to make some adjustments immediately when this conversation is over.
But it's still like adjusting accordingly.
Yeah. Knowing what you can take. Because when the phoenix rises out the ashes, you can't bring the ashes. And that's gonna be messy, you know what I'm saying? You got black on too, it's gonna be like I'm ashy or something. Yeah.
No. But it's just like I'm listening to you, and like you brought up the Sagittarius thing, and I'm like, oh, because like some of my best friends are Sagittarius. So you say what?
What is wrong with Capricorn, Sagittarius, and Gemini for some strange reason? I don't know. But now looking at this chart, it makes sense like they're so close. But not to cut you off.
Oh,
keep going. But that is crazy to me. That Cancer, Sagittarius, Gemini, Capricorn, like box together.
Yeah, no, Capricorns and Sagittarius. Now, Scorpios, I think I've resolved my Scorpio issue. They have not appeared as often as they used to. So I feel like I've resolved that. I'm trying to come to peace with that. But I have a friend that's a Sagittarius. And when you were saying that we like to just be, and it's funny because I feel like he's out like, and I'm like, damn, you've been doing this for 20 plus years. I'm like, I ain't making no progress. And I'm like, I said to him the power of the heart. Because I was like, maybe your heart is not in alignment with what your desire is, and that's why it's not flourishing for you. I said, because I'm trying to support you, but I know that your rhythm is not to say, I just want to be still and do one thing. Yeah. You still want to have that. Well, so when I said that to him, you just said that, I was like, I was kind of doing that to him. I was trying to bring him to be still, because like, I'm like, I just
like me. I have my sensitive point in my chart, which is in Sagittarius. So this is called the North and the South Node, which are like a compass that points to your spiritual path, and they're always opposite each other. Right? Mine is in Sagittarius and Gemini. So when it comes to the Sagittarian things, that is easy for me because I've done that so many lifetimes that it's nothing. But I've done it so much that I created an imbalance. So in this lifetime, my soul said, you're going to be applying these lessons, but you're going to do it in a Gemini way. So Sagittarius is so optimistic. But remember, we got practical matters that we got to deal with. So that's when that time period where, we'll say, oh yeah, it's gonna work out, I'm just that third. You can say that all day and be optimistic all day, but if you don't deal with like practical, it's just blind optimism, and that's where Sagittarius can go. Being so happy and like it's gonna work out. So then what happens is it doesn't work out, but then they're optimistic about that, and there's another philosophy behind that. There's a philosophy behind philosophy. And she can do that. Just philosophizing.
Right.
You see?
Yeah, but that just came to me when you were saying that, when she was asking the questions about the say, well, you did that relationship. I had to try to, and I was like, I did, but then I wanted to respect where he is, and that's why I sent him the video, which I think it took, I don't even know if he's watched it, because he was kind of like, what's in that package that you sent me? Like a month after I sent it to him, and I'm like, I had to open the package, you know, but yeah, so, but yeah, me and Scorpios, I'm trying to figure
This is
out.
recently, right? Like over the past, how long? Like last 2 years we've been dealing with that, right? With the Sagittarius and you too.
Well, no, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with
Okay.
Sagittarius. I don't have an issue with them. I have two. Well, my father's a Sagittarius too.
Okay.
So my father's a Sagittarius, and then I have two friends who are have the same birthday, and they're Sagittarius. And my relationship with them are almost opposite, but then it's almost the same as well. And like I said, one of them is very like, you know, and I'm like, damn, you need to get centered. You need to like, you know, and he calls me when he gets in some kind of crisis in his, like, it hadn't worked out, like he just said, like he gets in, it's like, oh, I'm on, you know, so he keeps putting this energy into this stuff.
That's the fire.
Right, he keeps putting that energy in, and then it doesn't come, it doesn't happen how he wants it to, and then he's like, I know it's gonna work, but I just haven't met the right person. Okay, you've been 20 plus years of meeting not the right people and putting your money behind not the right people. When do you decide that it's either your perception that maybe you don't deserve what you're trying to get, or that's really not your heart's desire, or it's too stuck in the material world and you can't get beyond the perception of obtaining this material thing, that you're not seeing all of the things that actually really are around you that you've achieved? Because that's where I come from with it, is that he's achieved his goal technically, but that it hasn't come to him in the way that he desires it to come, which is at one point in time. But I believe that it's come in pieces over those 20 years.
That's the Gemini energy. Because the Gemini, again, is the opposite. So it's like a lot of activity is happening, but it's like the big picture and the little picture.
Yeah.
So for being a Sagittarius, your focus is in the big picture, but you need to consciously look at, okay, what's here right now, and keep that balance going. And that's what we all have to do for each of the signs. We first look at where the signs are, or just have a general understanding of what all these energies represent. You know, this represents who you are, like y'all see me, I can see y'all individually, right? Y'all have an identity, right? Y'all all have the physical body. You have things that you own, right? Your talents, your self-worth. You have ways that you communicate, how you think, right? You have that deep sense of shelter, like, you know, your family, the home environment, things that are in your heart, your passions, your hobby, right? And how you prioritize your life, right? Then you have, we all relate, we have relationships, it's all contracts. We have this deep, intense desire, right? That's like transformation, where it's like, yo, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna do this, and then boom, you did it. Then you got the Sagittarius, where it's the expansion, your own philosophy. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Capricorn is what your responsibilities are. Like, really what I want to do in my life is I'm gonna climb this mountain, right? And this is what I know, right? And then this is that, okay, compassion. Is the whole thing. That's all of the signs. And then you look at where the planets fall in your chart, and you'll see where you're predisposed to using the energies. And if you're not using it because of the law of polarity, someone else is going to come with the energy. So, for example, when you're looking at your dad, when you're looking at your dad, and you're like, okay, so what am I seeing? That's a good question. What am I seeing, and what does this have to do with me? Because if you have a degree in Cancer, this is an opportunity for you to use your degree in that situation. And it may not even be to make the point to him, it's just for you to shine your light. But then what is your life?
With my friend or with my father?
With both of them, that's all you still. That's why the movie that I say that you all need to watch after this lecture is Groundhog's Day.
Yeah,
You have to watch Groundhog's Day, because it talks about these cycles. And everybody that he was meeting was different points of his consciousness. You're meeting yourself everywhere you want to go, but you don't care to pay attention to that part of you. It's like, oh, because he was just like trying to figure out, he's already like, I'm shocked. Like, why am I waking up this the same day? This guy's coming, I don't got time for that, right? And you're blocking all that out. But the way to be whole is through those relationships. You see, we had a lunar eclipse in Libra. So it's not about me, it's about we.
So it's about the lesson. And it's like what she's going through, right? Say, you know, it's not, because I've gone through it a lot, so I can relate, but it's not truly about, I'm at a point in my life where I'm thinking, like, is this truly about me helping this person or trying to even see something? Or is it truly about me not seeing what I need to see in this situation, or learn a lesson that I need to learn, and then I can share it and do what I have to do. So am I going through this because I'm helping them, or they really like helping me grow?
It's probably both.
It's both.
Right,
It's both. Because once, if you're having a conversation with somebody and they don't get it, it's because you don't get it.
Right.
When you get
That's
it,
why.
then they get it. And when you go to talk to say, hey, I want to apologize, you don't even get the chance to say, I want to apologize. You call them and they say, man, I was just thinking about that. And then y'all on the same page because it's still you.
Right.
It's the illusion that it looks like it's a whole bunch of different people, but that's all you who you see. Wherever you go is where you at.
Right.
And where you stand, it depends on where you sit. So more people are like, I'm taking a stand, but you were standing, you know, you were sitting and shit. So now you gotta work with that first, because we all in this shit together by ourselves.
All right. Another question from online. I'm going to read it as he wrote it. So in dealing with his recent experience, was he experiencing his past in a negative way, talking about you, fear, as you said, not dealing with the real work, more in your philosophy?
Was I dealing with the past
in a negative way, as he said, not doing the real work, more in his philosophy?
Well, keeping in line with the whole ancient teachings, I'll have to say that work that I was doing, but because of the division in the mind, it wasn't the work, but it was the work. Because the first part is that the personality that we built through the lower self has to be built first. And then it has to be destroyed, right? Then the light is going to shine through it. It's like those glow sticks. You got to snap it, and then the light will come on. But before you can snap it, you got to build the glow stick first, then snap it, then the light is going to shine. That's the Holy Trinity. Like the stages of three, because three is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is an expanding dynamic. So as I started to come up to ISC, it was like, okay, you were coming to do the work now, and you were conscious about this division, and you made a commitment to do the work. But when I was doing the work the first time, I was doing it, but I had all this baggage, you know, and it costs a lot of money to fly with extra baggage. You know, it's gonna cost.
That's right.
So then I realized that I didn't have all the money to bring the bags. So I didn't want to let go of the stuff. So I said, well, I'm gonna push my flight back.
Right.
Well, I don't even know if I want to take the trip, because if I can't bring my stuff.
Right.
But then when it came time it's inevitable now that I have to take that flight, then I have to let go. And that period of letting go, in my consciousness, if I say that is evil, then it will be evil. But I can do the same action, but see the light of love shining on it, and it won't be evil. That's why everybody now, with us moving into the age of Aquarius, and it's like we're coming out of Pisces, where it was someone taking care of us. People are going to take care, we're going to take care of each other, but we have to do it on our own. Because it's not, and once the group consciousness raises to that point, then it's like we're in the golden age again. But to me, since all of this is now, the only time that really exists is now, it's like the golden age is not necessarily like a time that's coming. when you get to that point now, then that's all you're going to see. And that's what Aries is about. This month that we're in, when the sun is in Aries, is about seeing a perfected vision of like heaven on earth. And when you raise in that consciousness, then you can be like the wise old man, you know, who climbed the mountain, and it's no rush because we're already, everything is there. But like I said, you got to go through those 3 stages. You got to build this personality, and that personality, the ego, which they always use to be negative, is really your teacher.
Right.
The ego is what's going to bring you to the different relations that you need to have and those bouts that you need to have, so that way your soul can say, okay, now I'm here. You shed the ego, and now you're there to be fully in line with who you really are. But it's a stage, it's like you have to go through what's false, and then the truth dawns on you. That's why in the beginning, and it says there was darkness. And then he said, let there be light. And when, like David, you know, David always says that we don't want to ask questions like why. You can never ask why, because if you ask why, then you're assuming that you know what the what's and the hows are. The very best question to ask to suspend your ego from, you know, the wheel spinning is to ask, what is this? And once you ask what, then you go into how, and then you get into where in terms of how it relates, because you're dealing with the Libra energy. And then automatically why is just going to dawn on you. You don't even have to look for it. It's just like, oh.
And you know what? I just thought if you start with why, it's almost disempowering.
Yeah.
Because when people come from the why, it's like, why did this happen to me? As opposed to what really happened.
Yeah. And that's interesting because Pisces, right? Pisces, it rules the feet in the body. And the feet understands the whole head, which is Aries. So your mind can be here, but until you do the walk and go through all of this to get to where you can say, I know, then you understand, which is Pisces the last. And then you gotta start the whole cycle again. Because once you get connected, then it needs to be disconnected again. And when you separate things, is that they can be properly joined.
You talking to all like I said, my thing for Friday, so some advice I gave for it's like, and then I'm seeing it because I mean, even in when you're presenting information, you're also working through you. And you know, that's what I said on Friday. It's like, even as I'm presenting the information, I'm having epiphanies for other things. Yeah. And I'm having breakthroughs in those as I'm explaining previous experiences that align with what I'm showing you, like how to break. You know, so and that's what I'm enjoying what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to say. Because it's all like relating to conversations that I've had over the past 3 to 4 days.
It was building to this energy. And the aspect that the moon made before it went full, and it was a harmonious aspect with Jupiter. And this aspect is a sextile. So sextile is an energy that's like, there's an opportunity for growth that can take place, right? It can jump the North Node, which is, the North Node right now is in Libra, and the South Node is in Aries. So that whole dynamic is like, for the longest, we knew who we were, or we thought we knew who we were. But since the North Node is pointing to how we're going to learn more about ourselves, it's going to be through the interactions with other people. Libra, so you can jump the North Node, and then it's squared Pluto. So when you have a square, you're talking about tension, 90-degree angle. So basically, once it's squared Pluto, it's like now we're looking for the deep answers, and we're not dealing with the surface. Right. We want to go, and when you combine all of this together with the 6th house, it's just like the best thing to do right now is to just be still. Okay, right now, there was a war, buildings were knocked down, and this is that period where it's just smoke in the city. And it's so much that we can think about how we're going to rebuild, and we know we're going to rebuild, but right now we're just like, okay, we survived. You know, and you just be still in that that space. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the person who asked the question responded back and said exactly. He was attempting to hold on to what he was familiar with, feeling comfortable, not gonna happen. Thank you. So they said, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So it's all good.
If you were Sagittarius,
Mhm.
you had a Gemini, your mother was a Gemini,
Mhm.
how would you deal with that? What would be the best way that you would deal with that situation?
Well, since right now, the sun, at this point of the chart, is in the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces. It's like we're just in absolute stillness right now and potential. So we can go anywhere. We can take it and go anywhere with it.
What's your sign? You don't mind me asking?
All of them.
I love
Yes.
that. I love that.
My sun is in Libra.
That's right.
I
So
like that.
the light
That's right.
shines for me when things are balanced. The reason I said we can go anywhere, you got to throw something at me. Like, give me some tension to work with.
Mm.
Right.
So give me a scenario.
I don't know, like, okay, so like I said, say you were Sagittarius and your mother's a Gemini, and there's, it feels like, let's just say it feels like you can't get through to her at all. Like
So what's
there's no compassion, there's no understanding, there's no communication, there's really not a lot of those things going on. How do you break those walls? How do you break down the Gemini? How does the Sagittarius break down the Gemini? Is what I'm asking.
Oh.
How does anybody break down the Gemini, honestly?
Well, since this is about me, myself, and my shadow, right? This is called me, myself, and my shadow, right? You got to look into the mirror, and the mirror is looking at the behavior that you don't like, and what is this about, and how does it relate to me, and where does this relate to me? So then just write a letter and say, I don't like when you do this, and then the next thing you ponder on is, where do I do this? Because you're seeing yourself, but it's like, for example, if I look in the mirror, right? Because now I told you about this sextile aspect. So, like, if I look at Dorita, this is me looking directly at myself. I've even challenged myself. This is a side note to actually look in my eyes. You should try that. Like,
Yes.
that's like real scary, right?
You
So
do it with a candle in dark.
yeah, you look at yourself, right? So this is like we'll say this is like the opposition. This is what the full moon is about. It's about being able to see the fullness of who you are. If I turn this way, this is a sextile, right? That's like I have an opportunity to see myself, but my focus is here. It's not too bad. Now this is 90 degree. I can see her, but if I didn't know her, I wouldn't know who this is, but it's challenging. You see what I'm saying? That's where growth happens, right here. Because you got to figure out how to work with this energy. That's that 90 degree angle.
Come on.
So when you look at yourself, you're looking at yourself, but it's being reflected back to you like it's a madhouse. Another movie that y'all should watch, the two movies I'm keeping repeating this is Groundhog's Day and Insurgent. I don't know if y'all seen this is the second part of the Divergent series.
Oh, yeah.
Insurgent, that movie is mandatory. And another movie, if y'all want to, is the movie Focus.
Yes.
Because that's basically like, that would be the balance between both of these, right?
I watched Focus. I saw a couple things in it I like thought about that struck me, but I really didn't see anything that she saw in Focus. But now that I'm going to watch it again, and
Focus is like, so look at it, right? And look at it where Will Smith is the masculine side and the woman is the feminine side. And they're just one person, they're both trying to get the same thing. But there's this fear, there's this holding on to old stuff, because he asked her a question. She asked him a question, he didn't want to answer it. That's him holding on to the wound, right? Because we all have a wound. We have a part of us that we just don't feel whole. And the whole thing about Virgo and Pisces is trying to become whole, which is where the full moon was in the 6th house, which is the physical side of that, like the work that needs to be done to maintain the physical part of it. But the shadow part is the 12th house. You got to be flexible enough to look at other people and see them, but then also see yourself at the same time. And you just do that by asking questions. Like the word, I usually write this down, but questioning is like a quest, and then you have ion, and ion is going back to the source, right? So when you're asking a question, you're getting back to the source, but there's two types of questions. If you add the word question up from a numerology standpoint, your vibration is number 2. So that's like, you're dealing with like, more of the duality.
Right.
But if you ask the right question, it can also be an 11.
Right.
Because when you add it up, it goes to the number 11. The 11 reduces to 2. So your questions have to be like on point.
So astrology is the sign. Like I feel like this, and I tell you this all the time. And you're kind of like making me feel like I'm right now. But like, so astrology is the science that rules everything, right? Like,
I wouldn't say rules. It just is a way to chart and map out cycles. But there's some people who don't do astrology and they talk to the animals. But the animals are based on a clock anyway. So when you think about time, that's Chronos. That's Saturn. Saturn is the illusion of the material world. That's why I hope I'm not spoiling this in the movie, but you see the part where the dad was so hard and cold, and he was actually a white guy. So when you think of that symbolically, that was Saturn. And that's why he said, I'm going to take all the money, because money is time. Because he's the one who's in control of, that's the discipline. But then the whole thing is that you're going to have to go. So the story of Saturn, he had his wife, Phalera, or whatever her name is, and he was having an affair. And in order to conceal the affair, he turned himself into a horse, him and the woman. And then she got pregnant. And, you know, Saturn was married, so he's like, that's not my kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, she tried to get him on Maury and all that stuff, but, you know, he was done out the picture. So now, the child that was born was Chiron, and Chiron was half horse and half human. And the mother was just like, wasn't having that, so she just left him in a cage to grow up by himself. So Chiron was wounded from the time that he was a child because his mother wasn't there. So that's the first wound. Then, you know, he grew up and he learned how to do a lot of things on his own. At some point in time, I think Apollo or one of the other guys, they shot him in the foot with an arrow and had poison on the dart. And that poison that was on the dart, it was something that he made, so he didn't really trip about it because it was like it was an accident. But it created this wound. So he went back to the cave where he grew up, and he was coming up with all kind of medicine that was healing other diseases, but it just couldn't heal that wound. So then eventually, Prometheus, who was in Hades and hell, he's like, I'll switch places with you. I'll die and let you come out because, you know, he was stealing fire from the gods, from Prometheus. But he was real like, why? So Chiron was like, I'll die and let you live so you can go in and teach your, you know, wisdom. But that's the way that he had to go and basically upset the wound. And basically that whole story is about that. We all have a wound that regardless of what we do, we can't fix it. It's about being able to be whole and accept that as being a part of our wound. Like for me, I got Chiron in Gemini. So for most people who know me, like I walk around with a whole bunch of books because I have this inadequacy or overconfidence with feeling like, you know, I need to learn or maybe I'm not going to be good at learning. And Chiron, wherever Chiron may be for any particular person, that's where your wound is. And that's the key to the whole, because the simple Chiron, if you look in the astrology chart, that's the key to the whole chart. Where they say Jupiter is a planet that gives lessons. If you get into that Chiron, then you really start opening up stuff. And what I was having was also a Chiron experience too, this past week. It's like, let's say if you have a woman who was raped, right? And she doesn't speak about it at all, because to even think about it creates that feeling of the wound of that experience. But when you say, you know what, I can stand up and I want to talk to somebody about this, right? You're going to be talking, you're going to be crying while you're talking, and that wound is still going to be there. But when you're doing that and able to accept it, that's when you start to go into a whole nother level in your spirituality. Because then now you become the best advocate for like women's awareness on being raped or whatever. But I can't just come up with that idea from an abstract standpoint. I would have to have had that wound to be someone who would be really effective. And that's what Chiron represents. So when you look at the movie Focus or any movie for that example, there's always some wound that they're trying to fix. But you have to have that feeling of separatedness so you can understand what coming together is about. That's why I answered yes and no to the question. Like, I wasn't doing the work, but I was doing the work. And like that's the whole moving forward. The answer is yes and no, equal and opposite. Yeah.
Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's yes and no at the same time.
That's what usually drives people crazy.
Yeah. Any other questions? Not our end with spoken word.
Because it's 1:25.
Okay. Yes.
Sidereal and tropic. I don't know the difference. Does it make a difference? Which one you pay attention to?
To really, from my studies, what's really like key is tropical, because it's based off of this imaginary 12 sections of the sky that we use. Sidereal is more about the astronomy, to say this is what an actual constellation is. But when we're doing astrology, we're not dealing with the constellations. We're just imagination, you know. But people who use sidereal, they have a whole nother philosophy, which is called Vedic astrology, and they use lunar mansions. So each degree, like there's a degree symbolism associated with, like this happened in 15 degrees. So there's books like the Sabian symbols or whatever that will tell you what this degree is. Actually, let me see.
Is that the degree you read last night?
This is the degree that the moon was full, when exact, and they had the lunar eclipse yesterday. The symbol is prehistoric paintings on the wall of a vast chamber of a cave.
That's the symbol for the sidereal degree, or for 15 degrees.
15 degrees in Libra, yeah. And this is just one. There's different like symbolism, because sometimes as astrologers who get into degree symbolism, we'll look and see where your rising sign degree is and look at that. And every time we read it, it's always some type of interpretation where it's like spot on for what the person is actually dealing with. From this standpoint, it's like prehistoric paintings on the wall of a vast chamber of a cave. So it talks about being lost inside the infinite variety of ways that Earth exists, portrays life, and explores itself. You are thrown into an infinity of responses and reactions to the myriad variations on universal themes.
Wow.
And that's just the first sentence. It goes on, but yeah.
And that was for the full moon.
Yeah, that's the degree of what it's going on. Yeah. Based on this particular, because there's another Sabian symbols. This one didn't resonate with me too much because it's a whole lot of details, but it's right on time because the full moon was in the 6th house, which is ruled by Virgo, so it is a whole bunch of details. But not enough details for where I want to go right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is too deep. But with that, I wanted to say that, you know, in life, there's a lot of human doings, right? But what's human being? Is it something that's linked to the 5 senses, or is it based on evolution from the perspective of Europeans? Nah. You see, I think that there's more to be a human than what we've been told, or should I say sold. To those who don't stand for nothing. To those that rather be seated in gold than to sit in the seat of their soul. And I stand guilty as charged with no apology. But since I've been studying soul psychology, it brought me to IC. And now I'm up here asking myself questions like, am I thinking my feelings or am I feeling my thoughts? And now I'm not even really feeling my thoughts because I wasn't thinking my thoughts. It's like I've been trapped in this cipher while I've been on this quest to the ion with questions for the oracle because I'm trying to free Zion. But most of the questions that I had was rhetorical because I already knew the answer. But like I told you, I wasn't thinking. I was caught in my feelings like Cancer. And that's astrologic. But you know, many look, but they don't see, and they try to blame it on their optics. And right when I'm about to get to the heart of the matter, they want to change the topic, like, chill, brother, like we somewhere down in the tropics. And me, I just want to shed some light and take them up a level. But at times, I'm afraid that some people may call me the devil. And what's funny is that the devil's in the details, and most people don't read between the lines, they focus on retail. Some people think that life's a beach with headphones made of seashells, and I can't argue if that makes them sleep well. With big dreams, but mostly it's all transitory. And it's time to make plans for our people. This shit is mandatory. But I'm starting to learn that it's much better to be the truth than to speak the truth. So with that said, I'm done. It's time to be the proof.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was amazing. So let's give him another hand. Yes. Wow, that made so much sense. And you were getting ready to cut off.
Yeah.
Did you catch yourself? Yeah, yeah. It was good. It was good that you took it to the full. We have some announcements. We have our silent retreat coming up May 22nd through the 24th. And it's a time for you to commune with nature without talking. We're gonna eat together, we're gonna sleep together, we're gonna party together, we're gonna have a lot of fun together, but no talking. Yes, yes. It'll be amazing, because I mean, I've done silent retreats before, and I've seen people crying together, but they're not speaking. You know, they may be just sitting looking at each other's eyes, and some type of emotion is coming about. You know, I'm seeing you, you're seeing me, and there's tears about it. But it's a wonderful time, and I think you'll enjoy it. We've got little bags, so when you check in, you'll have little things that you can do to keep yourself entertained, like blowing bubbles, writing in your journal, that type of thing. Try going canoeing with somebody, and you don't tell them, go left, right? You just have to commune without talking. So it's $125. We're taking down payments now, so it's not overwhelming to you, okay? What else is, we have meditation Tuesday through Friday here at 12 noon. We invite you to come up and do meditation with us and then go and finish your day. It's refreshing. Hachette leads that, and it's always enlightening, put it that way. Hachette, do you have any announcements of things that are going on in the community?
Yes, we have rescheduled our holistic roundtable discussion from today to next Sunday. So next Sunday, the 12th at 4 p.m. for those who are interested and have the time, we invite you to come down to Dynamic Wellness, where we'll have a holistic HMO roundtable discussion, and the topic is air quality awareness. Spring is sprung, and you know, allergies, and there's lots of allergies. There's the chemtrails, toxins, all kind of this, that, and the other in our air. So we're going to be sharing information, not so much about what is in the air, because we have no idea, but what can we do about the air around us and in us, and better assimilate that. So again, that's Sunday, 4 o'clock, Dynamic Wellness.
And I guess my other announcement is that we'll have the Emerald Ball this year. I don't think the date has been set, because we're going to get our astrological information in line with the ball. So that'll be probably in September or October. Our classes will start again here at the Institute of Sacred Evolution in September. And it is a 3-year commitment where you are actually working on your soul and your stuff. Most people don't want to go through it. They want to go around it, they want to go over it, they want to go under it, but you got to go through this. You got to go through your own stuff, so that when you are clear, and the information is coming to you, then you're coming from a very clear space within inside of yourselves. Too many times we got all this junk from the past, then I want to put it on you, but it's my stuff, you know. And I tell all of my students, I have had my butt kicked from the universe, from people, all of that, and you have to go through it. It is not beautiful. It can be beautiful. It can be beautiful, but for most of us, we're scared of our shadow. And that's what you have to do. You have to face that shadow side. So those classes are in September. And that's it. We have some food in the back for you, some nourishment. Stay around. Enjoy the food, give a hug, get a hug, and now we're going to close out. And we do it here, thumbs left, we hold hands, and we try to do male, female, depending on how many males are here. So you maybe have to have some women use their masculine side. Right.
Between two.
Okay. So we're standing on that square, our thumbs are left. I'm just taking a nice deep breath. And Father, Mother, God, we are very thankful for this time, this place. knowing who we are and having a better understanding of that life stream in which we are reflecting. We thank our guides, our guards, our ancestors, the ancient ones for coming here, being with us and supporting us on this life journey. Open our eyes so that we may see who we truly are and have the responsibility to carry that mantle out through life. And for this time we spend together in oneness and harmony, we say Ashe,
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 Asheo.
Asheo.
Give a hug, get a hug.
You know, that's
Oh, where is he? You did a really good job. Hey, ladies.